Sponsored in part by DollarSeed.com for your flowers, vegetables, and herbs. All organic seeds, all only $1 a pack. DollarSeed.com. And by WillowSpringsSoap.com. Handmade soaps with simple, recognizable ingredients, making soaps using the cold kettle process while using traditional methods. WillowSpringsSoap.com.
Manuretea.com, authentic Haven brand, 100% natural soil conditioner for the home garden, all your vegetables, herbs, and flowers. Manuretea.com, always free shipping. Squirm and Worm Farm, organic farm and gardening supplies. It's conveniently located in Plymouth, Wisconsin. Worm castings, organic potting soil, organic and heirloom seeds, cover crop seeds, and more. SquirmandWormFarm.com.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra. I'm Joy Baird. This here is a pH tester. This will test the soil in your garden, whether it's acidic or alkaline. And why is that important? Well, that's the scale that gardeners go off of to see if their plants are going to grow well. The scale ranges from 1 to 14, 7 being the center of that scale and 7 being neutral, and that's where the majority of the vegetables and fruits that you grow in your garden would like the soil to be. Now, this is not going to tell you if you need trace minerals. This will not tell you if you need more nitrogen, more phosphates, or more potassium. It will give you a good start on where to go after you find out if your soil is neutral or if it's more alkaline or more acidic. This is a very inexpensive device to get. We purchased this at our local home and garden center for about $12. Now, this one will also tell us if there's a lot of moisture, how much moisture is in the soil, if there's a lot of light in the area, which we're not concerned about at this point because we can kind of tell by putting our hands in the soil, by looking to see if there's light. Now, like I said, $12 for this. Now, these can be very cheap or very expensive based on the information that you want to get out of your soil. You can get soil testers that will range between $400 and $500. You can also take certain samples of your soil and send to your local university for a small fee every 3 to 5 years to check, and they can give you a much more detailed analysis of what's in your soil. So let's go around the garden, test a few places that I am concerned about the pH level, and we'll see what we need to do planting this fall to plant successfully for next spring. We're on the high end of the garden, and the corn looks sad, and the corn was a disappointment. Now, when your corn looks as it does here, it doesn't look that lush dark green. There's two contributing factors to this issue, one being an excessive amount of water. That will change your corn from dark green to yellow. Second one, which we don't have that issue with the excessive amount of water, second is a lack of nitrogen in the soil. Corn is a very heavy feeder of nitrogen, and with the lack of nitrogen in the soil, your corn will look a very yellowish, light green color as we have here, and it will hurt the production greatly. So what can we do to combat this before we even get with our soil tester? Well, one could be, we know the soil needs nitrogen. So a couple of inexpensive ways to help the nitrogen is, one, put a cover crop up here. And that could be winter peas, that could be green beans, or that could be turnip greens as well. Now, if you don't want to go through the hassle of turning the soil over and putting a cover crop in, another alternative would be, as the fall comes, you can layer a nice thin layer of leaves over your garden, wet them down so they don't blow away, and that will actually help bring nitrogen into the soil. As well as you could put a thin layer of grass clippings here as the grass is still growing over your garden, and that will allow nitrogen to leak, or nitrogen to be placed into the ground as well. So let's get the pH tester out here and let's see what it tells us if we need to add at least sulfur or lime based on the acidity. And if your soil is too alkaline, you want to add sulfur to drop that level to be a more of acidic level. If the soil is too acidic, you want to add lime to bring that pH level up. And these can both be found at your local home and garden center for a relatively reasonable price. And based on how much you need and how much square footage you have, the measurements are on the back of the bag. So what you want to do, at least with the type of tester we have here, and other testers, you take a certain sample and you put in a test tube and you add water, and it'll tell you based on the color which side you're on. So we're just going to take and remove some of the weeds here, and you want to probe this down to where the roots would typically be. So we're just going to insert it into the ground. Since I pulled the weeds, it's going to be a little looser right there, so we're just going to, and we'll see where we're sitting at. So I'm looking at the scale, and right now it's about a 6.5 dropping to a 6, which means we are low. We are acidic in the soil up here. Now this is more of a clay soil whenever you compare it to the other portions of the garden. What that means is we're going to have to add some lime to this in order to bring that pH level back up to a 7 and get a neutral setting on the soil. As well as with the lack of nitrogen, because of the corn here, is a great indicator of that. You can also go to your local coffee shop, and in most cases, and national chains in that fact, if you ask them to save the coffee grounds, they will. And local coffee shops, as in our area, will request a 5-gallon bucket or some kind of device that they can hold in. When it gets full, they'll give you a call. So we're obviously going to add some nitrogen to the soil by coffee grounds, and if you do that, you want to disperse the coffee grounds on the soil and then lightly work them under. You just can't leave them on top, because that's really going to defeat the purpose of getting those coffee grounds in the soil, and those are a very high level of nitrogen, and that will help the soil immensely. So 6.5 going to a 6 up here on the high end of the garden. We're low on this. We're very low, and it's acidic, so we're going to have to add lime to bring that acidity back up to a alkaline or a neutral base of a 7.0. So at least we have a starting base here on the high end. So let's go down to the center of the garden and see what it looks like there, because every garden, no matter how big or how small, you're going to get different readings everywhere you go. This is the cold frame we built a few weeks ago on the program. Now we haven't got the plastic covering on it, but we will before it gets too cold. Now we've worked the soil, we placed it here, and we've taken the grass clippings and we've just layered a light layering on top to add more nitrogen to the soil, because this is mainly going to be a lot of leafy greens, and leafy greens, one of the main contributors to that greenness is nitrogen. Your plants will need between 1 and 6% of nitrogen to grow properly, and we want them to be as healthy as we can get them while we're growing over the winter outside. Our pepper patch, we see some peppers that are very dark green and some are not so dark green. They're light colored. Now this can be a couple of different factors to this. One being, could be the variety of peppers. It also can be, much like we see with the corn, a lack of nitrogen in the soil. Now the pH level here is at a 7.0, which is exactly where we want it to be. But with the lightness of some of these peppers, we're obviously going to add nitrogen to the soil as well. And this is a great time of year, midsummer, early fall, to take a look at your garden and see what your plants are telling you about the healthiness of your soil. So let's go down to where the tomatoes are at and see what we've got to add or take away or help in that soil situation. We're down here by the tomatoes, and now another way you can add the nutrition that the soil needs is to add a good base of organic compost to your garden whenever you plant in the spring. So we're going to see what the pH level of this side of the garden is, and we're looking at right at about a 7.5. Now that's a little high. That's about a 0.5 higher than neutral, but I'm okay with that. 7's neutral, 7.5 to 6.8. You're okay in that range, even though they recommend about a 7.0. So right down here is very good. Obviously you want to check periodically in different areas of the garden. So let's head over by where we harvested the rutabagas on a pass straight to the point episode, and we'll see what that soil looks like and see how we need to help it. So we're going to test the soil on the back side here where the rutabagas was. And again, this is a dial one. You can get digital, you can get very elaborate, but this will give us a good idea of where we need to begin at. We're plunging in the ground there, and the reading is giving us about a 7.0 to a 7.5 right in that area. So it's right about where the tomato area was over there. Again, we're going to add some organic nitrogen by coffee grounds. We're going to add some leaf matter here comes this fall, as well as bring in some organic fertilizer next spring. And by reading what the plants are telling us, it doesn't look to be that harsh of a lack of nitrogen over here based on what the corn looked like and some of the peppers did on the high end of the garden. Another way you can test your soil is you can contact your local university, and sometimes they will offer soil test kits for either free or for a nominal fee. Now, also you can do it with some of the stuff you have in your kitchen. This is white vinegar. And you can take your soil, add it to a container, And if your soil, and we'll see if it happens here, and I hope it doesn't, if your soil fizzes and bubbles, which it doesn't, if it did, it would tell you that your soil is too alkaline, and you would need to add sulfur to bring that alkaline level back to a more neutral state. Since the soil just absorbs the white vinegar, that soil is not alkaline at all, so that's a good sign. Seems very complicated, but there's many charts and articles and graphs online that will greatly help you understand how your soil should be, because there's no bigger disappointment than to work hard all summer and then come out with very little harvest because your soil has been in poor condition. Now, we've been here for about 4 years, and we've begun to deplete some of the nutrients in the soil. Now, if you are a new gardener and simply just went in the front yard or backyard like we have and flipped the soil over, and this is your first or second year, you're not going to see the dramatic drop in nutrients in the soil like we have, but you do want to keep an eye on it, and that's why we're testing our soil now, so we can get ready to have a better garden next spring. Through our social media, through our podcast, and through interviews in general, no matter who we've spoke to in the garden industry, the comment has been the same across the board when it comes to gardening. Spend 90% of your time on soil preparation and 10% of your time on planting, because if your soil is not right, you're just going to waste your time planting. So we're going to get our soil prepped and ready to go so we have even a better year next year in the garden. With just some simple pH testing, it'll give us a good base on where we need to go from here to get our soil back to where it needs to be. I know what you're thinking. You're looking at those tomatoes going, those aren't fully ripe, and yes, you would be right by that. But there's a reason why we pick them early here at the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardens. The reason being that as soon as the tomato gets ripe on the vine, it becomes attracted to other insects and animals such as birds and squirrels and other insects that like to go over and investigate and peck holes in it, pull them off the vine, try to eat them. Raccoons are known for this at night too, and this is really based on what area you live in. So we pick them a few days early, and how do you know when to pick them? Well, you want to look at the bottom of your tomato, and you're going to have to bend over and take a look. As soon as the color begins to change on the bottom of the tomato, like on this black crim, the color will begin to ripen around the tomato, much like this here. As you can see, the color begin to ripen, and you can just pick them, take them and put them on your windowsill in your kitchen, garage, wherever, and within a few days they will be as ripe as they would be if you left them on the vine. Now, when the animals come in and destroy them, you might be able to get a few seeds saved from them, but that's about it. And this brings up another important part of tomato planting, knowing the variety you planted and where you planted it. So you know that a rainbow tomato may be a variety of different colors, from red to purple to this one will more likely be an orange yellow one, to a black crim that's going to be a very dark color in pigmentation. So knowing that will greatly enhance your knowledge of when to pick them early. For example, a green zebra is not going to change a bright color. It's going to stay a green color with dark green stripes. So something to keep in mind when you're planting your tomatoes and harvesting them early, so that you can get the tomatoes before the critters in your neighborhood or area gets them. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe and comment. We put out this particular video each and every Tuesday with a variety of other videos throughout the week. I'm Joy Baird, and this has been a Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra.
For more information, visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com and check out the new section, The Garden Hub, where you can view videos from different gardeners around North America growing in all different types of mediums.